So in this video, I'm going to talk about what we're going into energetically in the month of May. But before I start, I'm going to do about the first half and another video later on the second half, just to give you sort of a break between the two energies because they're different. But before I start into May, I do want to talk about something that happened when Uranus went into Gemini on April 26th. Very interesting to me because I always look at the symbology and the synchronicity of how astrology matches the events that are going on together. And so when I talked about Uranus before going into the sign of Gemini, Gemini is really a social sign, and the air signs are social signs. Like I said before, we're going into air and fire because Pluto went into Aquarius, which is an air sign, and then Uranus is in Gemini now in an air sign, and then we have all the other planets in Mars, which is fire. So in the dynamic of Uranus, we look at innovation, we look at new ideas, we look at disruption, chaos, crisis, accidents, things that happen that sort of rock our world out of nowhere. When things aren't just normal and always impactful, like we look at Capricorn, we look at Uranus comes in and just kind of pulls the rug out from under us in our life. And so when it moved into the sign of Gemini, it moved into the sign, the social sign of communication. So that is where we get all the communication, we get ideas and reporting and information, thrown upon us. And this will go on for 7 years. And so we sort of open everything up to the point of communication. Not like we were, not as like we weren't before, but now it's like on speed. But what happened the day that event happened when Uranus did move into that sign, believe it or not, it was the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And we had what? An assassination attempt that came into that building with essentially 100 journalists in the entire world watching to see this disruption and chaos happen. And I just found how that would operate so beautifully as it enters into this energy, as scary as that is, because a lot of times Uranus does things like this. And I'm not going to talk on anything about, the politics of it or anything else. That's not the point in astrology. But I will say this, the communication that came out of it in the social media empire was enormous, absolutely enormous. And the whole thing we're always trying to struggle with now is what is real and what is fake. Is it what's the real news, what's the truth, or what is the conspiracy theory? And we've seen conspiracy theories just blossom over the last how many years now as we've gone through these these systems. And I used to remember when we used to call people that were conspiracy theorists people that were tinfoil hat people. There were very few and far between, but they were the tinfoil hat people. They were the ones like UFOs are real, and I saw aliens and all these kinds of things. And now everything becomes a conspiracy because everyone has a format and a platform to just say whatever the hell they want. And we follow these groups or don't follow these groups. We get into these platforms that we get stuck in. So I just wanted to make a reference to that we really have to look at where our information is coming from now. This is very important from here out in the next 7 years and how we sort of debate things. Because when Uranus was in Taurus, everything was stuck. Because Taurus is the stubborn sign of keeping things the way it wants it to be, to possess it. And so everyone stayed in their camp. Now we're breaking it up. So now with Pluto in Aquarius, we're breaking up the systems. And I talked about how we're breaking up into a new world order. The old world order is sort of collapsing as all our politics and our relationships with other countries are separating and breaking apart. And so in that dynamic, you'll see more of those things happening as we move forward, as we're trying to find out how we're going to break it up first and then how we put it back together. But as we go into the month of May, the 1st of May was a full moon in Scorpio. So we've been in Taurus, the sun sign of Taurus, and Scorpio moon is in opposition to the sun. Opposition charts of the sun and the moon, full moon charts, are the most challenging times and energy you could put yourself in. Because what we essentially have is the sun representing sort of your light, your personality, and your expression. And then the moon is your emotional desires and needs emotionally. And so these things are in opposite poles of each other. So you look in your personality, which is in a Taurus way, is self-sufficient. It wants to be by itself, do its own thing, very possessive, and self-reliance. Scorpio, on the other hand, does not. Scorpio's desire, when you put it in the moon emotionally, is it needs to connect with others. It needs to connect itself with others. But what are Taurus and Scorpio's essence? Their energy is resources. So So resources in our world is translated to money. So there are the money signs. And so Taurus wants to make its own money and hoard it. And then Scorpio wants to engage with money and possibly control it. And so you have the battle between these two things in a full moon. So if you've noticed, as you will notice this month, that signature will carry us through the month in Taurus while it's in that sign about how we're fighting about money in our relationships, in our jobs, and in everything that we're looking about, like who is in control of it? Where are we not self-sufficient? Where are our dependencies? Scorpio is the most dependent sign because it lives its resources and its essence connected to someone else. And that's why it is the sign of marriage. Because marriage is till death do us part. So we put all our stuff together and create our finances, and then we divorce. And the worst thing you do is the death of a marriage because all the money goes to shit. So that is something that we're going to be struggling with this month, is about the resources as we go through this experience together. And I will tell you also, when when the moon did go into Scorpio, we had, a very powerful thing also happened that day. It was actually that day, is that the UAE in the Middle East broke off with OPEC. The giant oil conglomerate of the world is OPEC in the Middle East, and they decided we don't want to be in the group anymore. So there was another huge moment of seeing a huge shift of change, of something else breaking apart in the moneyed world, because oil is really one of the biggest sources of a lot of things that money comes from, or what's about. It used to be gold, now seems to be oil. So this is a lot of this month for us. And so if you're in conversations with your spouse or family or whatever about money issues, it's the time to have these conversations. And you want to look at, if you're in a bad marriage and you're thinking of, I want to be in a divorce, or this isn't working for me anymore, because Scorpio represents the connection isn't working anymore. What they want isn't the value of what I want. And so it creates that conflict. And so if that is going on, another thing that happens in this month is that Mars will make an aspect to Jupiter, which is legal things. So you might want to get counseling. If you're planning to change your business profile, start a business, or you need some help with finances, the first half of this month, I would suggest get some counsel, because you're going to need objectivity. Scorpio and Taurus are extraordinarily subjective in their nature. So you always need sort of an outside point of view as you're dealing with these issues. So this goes on until about, the middle of the month, and then the energy changes, and I'll talk about that in another video.